Namaste students. Today we are going to continue with the viral diseases. Infectious disease caused by the virus. The very good example you are going to study is common cold. Common cold. This is caused by the group of rhinoviruses. Group of viruses called rhinoviruses. Rhinoviruses. Common cold is caused by rhinoviruses. And mode of transmission. Mode of transmission by cough or sneeze of infected person. By cough or sneeze of infected persons. Other than that, objects used by infected persons. It can be pen, mouse, keypad, books, doorknobs, etc. By all these, the virus may enter our body. From infected persons, we may get the infection. And which are the symptoms of this disease? Symptoms. Here, nasal congestion and discharge. Nasal congestion and discharge. Headache, fever, tiredness, cough, sore throat, and apart from that, hoarseness of voice. These are the symptoms of common cold. So, everyone might have experienced this: nasal congestion and discharge, then headache, fever, tiredness will be there common. Then apart from that, there will be cough, then sore throat, then hoarseness, ಧ್ವನಿ ಕರ್ಕಶವಾಗುವುದು or ಒರಟಾಗುವುದು, hoarseness andre. So, all these symptoms are there in the common cold infection. And it takes, the duration of this infection is usually 3 to 7 days. Usually 3 to 7 days it will be there. If you take medicine within 1 week it will go, otherwise it will be 7 days. It is one and the same, And here the part which is affected here, it is not the lungs. Nose and respiratory passages are affected, not the lungs definitely. Parts affected: nose, respiratory passages, and definitely not lungs. Lungs are not affected in this infection. Lungs are not affected in this infection. This is about common cold. Common cold caused by group of viruses called rhinoviruses. Group of viruses called rhinoviruses, and the duration of this infection is generally 3 to 7 days. 3 to 7 days, and parts affected is the nose and respiratory passages, and definitely lungs are not affected in this infection. Then symptoms: nasal congestion and discharge is common here, then headache, fever, tiredness, that is general weakness. Then apart from that, cough, sore throat and hoarseness of the voice. These are common symptoms in this infection. Then we will move on with the protozoan infection, protozoan disease. Protozoan infections, the very important infection in this, the disease is called malaria. Disease is called malaria. Malaria is prevalent in tropical regions. It is prevalent in tropical regions. It is caused by different types of parasites. Causative agent or parasite of this infection is Plasmodium species, Plasmodium species, Plasmodium vivax, Plasmodium ovale, Plasmodium malaria or malariae, and Plasmodium falciparum. All these are dangerous. They cause either tertiary or quaternary malaria. And among this, Plasmodium falciparum is a dangerous one. Plasmodium falciparum it is dangerous and causes malignant malaria. Malignant malaria is caused by Plasmodium falciparum. Plasmodium falciparum causes malignant malaria, and that is a very dangerous one, fatal. It may lead to death also. So, adhika marana sambhaviಸುವುದು Plasmodium falciparum ninda. It affects the cerebral system. So, memory will be affected for some time, then it will be all right, back to the normal condition in this infection, especially Plasmodium falciparum infection. And we will study the life cycle of Plasmodium species, vivax, ovale, malaria or Plasmodium falciparum in general. We will see the life cycle. We will see the life cycle of Plasmodium, Here, Plasmodium requires two host bodies to complete the life cycle. To complete its life cycle. To complete its life cycle, it requires two host bodies. One is human being, the other one is female Anopheles mosquito. Female Anopheles mosquito and human being. And we are the definitive host, human beings are the definitive host to reach the human body through the mosquito. It acts as an intermediate agent or intermediate host or vector. where some part of the life cycle will be completed. So, it reaches the human body through the female Anopheles mosquito. Why only female mosquitoes? Female mosquitoes, in order to lay fertile eggs, they require some of the component of our blood. Then only they can lay fertile eggs, and only female mosquitoes, they suck the blood male, and there is a fertility factor in our blood, and because of that it sucks the blood, then only it will lay fertile eggs. And female Anopheles mosquito acts as an intermediate host in the spreading of this particular parasite, that is Plasmodium parasite, and that causes the disease malaria, So, Plasmodium requires two host bodies. The hosts are the human being, that is the definitive host or target host, we can say. To reach the target host or definitive host, intermediate host or intermediate agent or vector is required, that is female Anopheles mosquito. We will see how it will achieve its or complete its life cycle. First thing, so whenever, usually when there are two parts in the life cycle. One is a cycle which is completed in human body or human host. Another part is a cycle that is completed, that will be completed in mosquito host. And here, whenever a infected mosquito, female Anopheles mosquito bites a definitive host, I mean the human being. So, here in the salivary gland of, you can see here, the salivary gland of mosquito, there are stages called sporozoid. Sporozoid stages are there in the salivary gland of mosquito. When such infected mosquitoes, when the mosquito bites another human body, when they bite the human body, sporozoids will enter the stream. Sporozoids are the infective stages. Infective stages, they enter the blood circulation of human being, that is a sporozoid stage, and through blood circulation they reach the liver. Through blood circulation, they reach the liver. In the liver, there will be reproduction, multiplication of this continuation of life cycle of this pathogen, I mean the parasite. Here the parasite reproduces asexually in the liver cells, and it releasing into the blood. So, that will be released into the bloodstream. See here, you can find here the parasite, and that enters the liver cell, and where it will be multiplied, and then by rupturing the liver cells or lysing the liver cells, the parasite will be released. And this infects the RBC. Red blood cells. The release parasitic stage infects the RBC, red blood cells. And here in the red blood cell, they reproduce asexually. Here also asexual reproduction. They reproduce asexually in the RBC, and then bursting the RBC, and they release the content. So, what content they release? See, bursting and causing cycles of fever and chill. So, that is caused by cycles of fever and chill will be there, which is caused by altered hemoglobin pigment, and altered hemoglobin is known as hemozoin. It is called hemozoin. Hemozoin is the malarial pigment which is released by the RBC. When the RBC bursts, releasing the pathogen or the parasite, during that time hemoglobin gets altered and it is released in the form of hemozoin. And this hemozoin induces chill and fever in the patient, the person whoever is infected by this pathogen, they get chill and fever because of hemozoin content. That is in that also types are there, that is once in 2 days fever will be there, or once in 3 days fever will be there. So, depending on the species of pathogen or the parasite, the fever pattern will be different, duration will be different, but this is predominantly seen in the tropical region. India is definitely a tropical country, definitely it is seen, especially in Mangalore region it is seen. Then in the RBC, the pathogens are released, bursting the RBC, the pathogen is released, and some of the pathogen, they enter the stage called the gametocyte stage. The sexual stages are gametocyte stage. So, pathogens they enter, parasites enter into the RBC. You can find, and now this is a gametocyte stage. Sexual stages develop in blood cells. Sexual stages develop in blood cells, and here male stages and female stages are separate. Here you can find there is a female gametocyte stage, there is a male gametocyte stage, and these gametocytes are taken by the mosquito, taken up by the mosquito, and a female mosquito takes up gametocytes with the blood meal. When they suck blood from the infected person, they take the gametocyte stage. When they take it is a gametocyte stage along with the blood meal, and that will be entering into mosquito body, and further development takes place in the mosquito body. What further development? See here, the gametocyte stages are taken along with the blood meal, and when it is sucking the blood, and then, so what will happen is the fertilization and development of gametocyte. Fertilization means fusion of male gametocyte with the female gametocyte, and that takes place in the stomach of mosquito, fusion or fertilization will be there, followed by development, that is in the stomach of mosquito, and here you can find the ultimately finally the sporozoid stage gets accumulated in the salivary gland. It gets accumulated in the stored in the temporary storage will be done in the salivary gland, and sporozoid stages are infective stages. So, whenever the mosquito which has such sporozoids in the salivary gland, when they bite the fresh human being, they get the infection. So, infective stage is sporozoid. When they take the infection, in the stage into the mosquito body is gametocyte stage. That is a sexual stage, and the sexual development takes place within mosquito body. So, there is a mosquito cycle or mosquito host and life cycle. Then here some part of the life cycle will be completed in a human body. That means it has two hosts in its life cycle, human being as well as the intermediate host is female Anopheles mosquito. Okay. And symptoms, what are the symptoms of this infection? Symptoms definitely chill and fever, that is once in 2 or 3 days, that depends on the type of pathogen involved. Severe headache, stomach pain, nausea, anemia, jaundice. These are common in malarial infection or common in malaria or the plasmodium infection. These are same, these symptoms are same. And specifically antidote for this is a quinine drug obtained from the bark of cinchona tree. Bark of cinchona tree is obtained, extracted. Quinine drug is antidote, Ramabana anta ಹೇಳಿದ್ರೆ antidote for this infection. Okay. This is about malaria. Now, we will move on with another protozoan infection, amoebiasis or amoebic dysentery. Amoebiasis or amoebic dysentery. Name of the parasite, entamoeba, entamoeba histolytica, entamoeba histolytica is name of the pathogen, entamoeba histolytica, name of the pathogen. Then name of the disease is amoebiasis, is also known as amoebic dysentery, amoebic dysentery. Mass affected large intestine, large intestine. Mode of transmission, how we get the infection, that is by contaminated food, water. Here house flies act as mechanical carriers. That means it is not a vector, just a mechanical carrier. They carry the cyst of amoeba and they help in the transmission of this particular infection. They are just physical carriers. Mechanical carriers means physical carrier. The life cycle will not proceed in its body, it just carries the cyst of amoeba from the feces. So, when the food and water is contaminated by the cyst of amoeba, we get the infection. By consuming such foodstuffs or water, we get the infection here. Okay? That is how it is transmitted. And mechanical carriers, when they, especially these flies, when they sit on the feces, and from the feces the pathogen enters their body, not body exactly, physical transmission. No? So, it is taken by the housefly and it contaminates wherever it goes and sits, the open food items or water. So, it will put the cyst. So, the food and water gets contaminated because of that. Then symptoms in this infections. Constipation, abdominal pain and cramps, abdominal pain and cramps. Then apart from that, stool with excess mucus and blood clots. Stool with excess mucus and blood clots. This identification mark of this infectious. And stomach upset, because the mucus and blood clots are there, definitely there will be stomach upset or dysentery. Here in this dysentery and there is constipation also, where feces will be retained within the, it is not properly formed, but still it is retained within the large intestine, that leads to a condition called constipation. Then definitely abdominal pain and cramps are very common, and blood cells are affected, blood clots are there when RBC is affected, because it is entamoeba histolytica is a pathogen. And this amoeba actually breaks the tissue or damages the tissue of the intestinal lining. Because of that, it gets the name entamoeba histolytica. Histone andre tissue anta artha. Okay. So, here these are the symptoms. Apart from that, there may be fever also. Loose motion will be there, fever will be there, and stomach pain, all these are common in this. But identification symptom of this infection is excess mucus and the blood clots will be there in the feces or in the stool. Feces or stool, it will be there. Okay. And this is mainly because of unhygienic practices. When we eat the food stuff or food items which is kept open, we get the infection, because flies, whenever they sit on the feces, same fly can come and sit on the open food items, and we cannot see that the cyst of amoeba. We take it, consume it along with the contaminated water or food. So, we get the infection in this particular condition. Okay. This is also a protozoan, this is also a protozoan infection. So, malaria and amoebiasis, two protozoan infections. Okay. We will move on to the next one, helminth infections, helminth infections. Helminth infections. Two types of helminth infections we have to study. One is ascariasis, other one is filariasis or Wucherariasis. Filariasis or Wucherariasis. These two are helminth infection caused by the roundworms. Caused by the roundworms coming under nematoda. First we will see ascariasis. It is caused by, name of the disease is ascariasis, parasite causing the disease is Ascaris. Lumbricoids, Ascaris lumbricoids, or it is the intestinal roundworm. Intestinal roundworm. It is the intestinal roundworm. It is the intestinal roundworm. Ascaris lumbricoids or intestinal roundworm, which causes ascariasis. And there is no intermediate host in its life cycle. So, direct infection will be there. Here mode of transmission, infection, how we get the infection, mode of transmission, mode of transmission in this infection by consuming contaminated food items, fruits, vegetables and water. Fruits, vegetables and water. Symptoms: intestinal bleeding, intestinal bleeding, that is very important. Abdominal pain, muscular cramps, fever and anemia common. Apart from that, there will be intestinal blockage. There will be intestinal blockage in severe type of infection. Intestinal blockage. So, worm is large in size, because of that 10 at least 8 to 10 worms or 10 to 15 worms also will be there in the intestine, and here it will block the intestine, and this also accumulates usually seen in the large intestine. Part affected is the intestine. Parts affected usually the large intestine, and generally we think that nothing will happen in this infection, but in a severe type of infection and usually these worms migrate to other parts of the body, I mean the vital organs of the body. Actually it is seen in the large intestine. When it is too much, it may enter liver, heart, lungs, etc. In severe cases, it may come out through the nostril. That means by the time it has already damaged almost all the vital organs of the body. So, there is a serious condition, a complicated condition, and especially in the small children in the slum area, this is common. Nowadays it has become little less, but otherwise it was common in the slum area, mainly because of unhygienic practices, and the child cannot survive in such cases. Okay. And here the intestinal roundworm Ascaris lumbricoides that causes the disease ascariasis. And mode of transmission by consuming contaminated fruits, vegetables or the food item or even the water, we get the infection, because along with the feces the worms will be, or the eggs, not worms exactly, eggs of the worms will be going, and when open place defecation is done, in the open space, open places, when the stool is discharged or open place defecation is done, and usually what will happen, it will contaminate the soil or the fruits or vegetables, it will be grown in that region, it will get contaminated. If we are eating the fruits or vegetables without properly washing, we get the infection. That complication will arise here. So, mainly because of unhygienic practices, this infection will occur. Then another helminth infection. Another helminth infection is filariasis or Wuchereriasis. Filariasis or Wuchereriasis. Filariasis or Wuchereriasis, also known as elephantiasis. ಆನೆಕಾಲು ರೋಗ ಅಂತ ಹೇಳ್ತಾರೆ. Okay. This is also caused by a nematode. Name of the parasite involved here is Wuchereria bancrofti. Wuchereria bancrofti. Wuchereria bancrofti is one pathogen. Another one is, another species is Wuchereria malai. Wuchereria bancrofti and Wuchereria malai. Parts affected. Parts affected. Lymphatic vessels of the lower limbs. Lymphatic vessels of the lower limbs, and actually there will be chronic inflammation of these vessels for many years. For many years, actually is a long duration type of disease. Chronic and slow agi develop agudu. Acute and fast all of a sudden. Chronic and slow, day by day it increases, where the parasite lives in the lymphatic vessel. Parasite lives in the lymphatic vessel, and how it is transmitted, that is with the help of mosquito vector only, and here the mosquito species is different. So, in the case of malaria it was Anopheles species, here it is Culex mosquito. Mode of transmission. Mode of transmission by mosquito bites, and the Mosquito type is Culex, female Culex mosquito. Female Culex mosquito is a intermediate host in the life cycle of filarial worm. This is Wuchereria bancrofti or Wuchereria malayi. You can call it as Filaria bancrofti and Filaria malayi also. That's the other name of the parasite. Okay, here lymphatic vessels are affected. Lymphatic vessels are affected. And how the mosquito, because lymphatic vessels are not openly seen, it is not in the peripheral circulation. And these parasites, they produce the larval forms called microfilaria. Microfilaria are the larval forms of Wuchereria. And these microfilaria, during evening time, they come to the peripheral circulation. They will be seen in the peripheral, superficial or peripheral circulation. And whenever the mosquito bites, why in the evening time? Because it has to synchronize with the activity of the intermediate host. Intermediate hosts are active during evening time, late in the evening. And during this time, the microfilaria, they come to the circulation, and that time it will synchronize with the mosquito bite. So, mosquito will bite and mosquito takes the microfilaria. It cannot be seen, is so small, tiny, microscopic, and when it bites another person, that person gets the infection. It is prevalent in the tropical region, same as malarial parasite. Malarial parasite also, it has to synchronize with the activity of the mosquito, mosquito activity, because there is almost late in the evening. Here in the filariasis or elephantiasis, the symptom. So, usually the lower limbs will be affected, in this. Symptoms: enlargement of lower limbs, sometimes along with scrotum or scrotal region, abnormal increase that resembles elephant's leg, huge leg. Because of that, it is known as elephantiasis or ಆನೆಕಾಲು ರೋಗ. ಆನೆಯ ಕಾಲಿನಷ್ಟು ತೋರಾಗ್ತದೆ, ದಪ್ಪ ಆಗ್ತದೆ, because accumulation of lymph fluid will be there. Because of that, it is known as ಆನೆಕಾಲು ರೋಗ. And enlargement of lower limbs, there is accumulation of lymph. This is due to accumulation of lymph in the limbs. Then there will be reddish color. Not every time, during severe, when the microfilaria come outside and they are seen in the peripheral circulation, there will be fever. It is characterized by fever. So, reddish color and fever in the evening time. Not throughout the day, only during evening time they develop fever in this infection. Okay. This is about filariasis, Wuchereriasis or elephantiasis. So, Ascariasis and Wuchereriasis or filariasis, these are the types of helminth infection in our body. Then we will move on to the fungal infection. Many species or genera of fungi cause infections in our body. One such disease is ringworm. Name of the disease: ringworm. Parts affected: skin, and scalp region. Pathogen or causative agent. Microsporum. Trichophyton. Epidermophyton. These are the genera which cause ringworm disease. Symptoms: dry, red color, lesions on the skin, between the toes and groin region it is common. Itching. Itching sensation will be there. Itching sensation will be there. And how we get this infection? The infection is by, that is mode of transmission, by contact with soil or cloth, comb used by infected persons. We get the infection by playing with soil, we get the infection. Apart from that, a cloth, a comb or whichever towel used by the infected person, we get the infection.